All right, episode 6. Today we have one of my recommendations. It's Diary of a CEO about Coinbase with Brian Armstrong. This is the type of podcast that I originally started loving. I think I really like listening to stories through podcasts. And Brian kind of explained how he ended up in the position he is developing Coinbase to be this crazy big company and kind of pushing the envelope. I had it at a 90 Sterling.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's really is. It's I think I'm realizing what type of podcasts I like and like what got me into loving listening to podcasts. And it is like this stories and hearing these very successful people tell their stories and kind of getting insight into their brain. That's what I think you like more knowledge gaining podcasts, but um, yeah, this one was a top one for me.
I liked it. I gave it a 68. I think it was good enough to have me follow Diary of a CEO because I wasn't following him before. Like, so I have a new podcast on my
That's
list
pretty
now.
big. That's
It
pretty
is. It's the
big.
first new podcast from this
Stephen
little
Merritt.
experiment. And to be honest, I used to see clips of this guy on social media, and he came off as a little bit of a snowflake to me. So I at least he's always, what about your feelings and how did you cope with it? That's the highlights I saw.
Stephen, the
Yeah.
CEO.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
I was like, in his Diary of a CEO, it's kind of girly. I mean, he has some, but it was not what I expected. So I gave him a chance. I like the episode. Brian Armstrong is an interesting dude. I liked him a lot because he's kind of like he's the one that made big news, and I don't know how old this podcast is. I couldn't really tell by listening
It's
to it. But
2022, July 2022. So 2 years old.
so this is probably right after he made that big splash of saying we're not
Yep.
doing politics at work. Yeah,
Yep.
I mean
It was.
that's a balls, but I respect him for it.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the most interesting things Coinbase has done to this point. It seemed like an obvious move,
He might have
but
been that
no,
first domino in woke hitting its peak.
I kind of agree, especially being able to look back. I mean, it was like no, it seemed like an obvious move, but everyone was way too scared to touch it, especially public companies.
Yeah,
No
they're
one
the
wanted
first
to say
company that
that.
said, no, we'll actually make more money if we don't do this crap.
So I guess to say what he said, if you're not aware, is that he said, "Do not bring politics into the workplace," and they created a severance package for all Coinbase employees. If that offended them and they didn't want to work there anymore, then Coinbase is, we don't need you to be here if that's going to be you.
He,
And
he
about
said,
5% of the company left.
He said, we're going to work at work. And I like the
Yeah.
part where the guys in Ireland were like, what are you talking about? This, like, you don't have to tell us this. I thought that was great.
And you know another crazy, when I heard that, I thought it was weird that they had an issue because Coinbase is 100% remote. They don't have any brick and mortar. They don't have they're
Yeah,
headquartered out
but
of New York, but they, like, I don't know, my remote coworkers, I don't like socialize with them. Like I talk to them in meetings and stuff, but it'd be very hard to like socialize with them if you're never in person with them.
yeah, maybe.
So
I mean, but there's a certain type of person that goes and works in HR at a tech company. You know what I mean?
yeah, person that wants to make a lot of money doing the same job as other recruiters.
Yeah, that's funny.
I do think it's cool how Coinbase is 100% remote. It kind of like matches their philosophy of like investing in decentralized technologies.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Is that something they did like at the same time, or have they always had that?
I believe they've always been remote. And the idea is just that it's a waste of money for them. So they're really big on they recruit the best talent no matter what. If it's not a hell yes, then it's a no. Um, so I think with that philosophy in mind, they believe that those type of workers can function from being remote and can be relied upon. On top of that,
Hmm.
so it's and then also to recruit the best talent. And if there are the best talent and they are more reliable, then you need a wider scope of like if you can recruit someone in New York and Los Angeles and Ontario, and they can all be on the same team because they're the best people in this continent, then you can get them on the same team rather than if you had a building in San Francisco that people didn't want to move to.
Yeah, maybe. I feel like I don't know. Maybe I've just been raised old school. A lot of where I've seen is like we're classified, so you can't do a lot of stuff remote. Like this job I have now, we can. But my last couple jobs where I really learned leadership, you couldn't. You had to be in person. But I feel like I could beat a remote based team with a in person based team.
I think when you get into like top tier talent, they're going to be so much above. Like I don't know if you can truly get top tier talent. I think being being remote is not as big of a deal. Because when I look around, it's the people who aren't as good like really need in person help. They need that support to grow. But when you get to these really smart developers, at least in development, I don't think it's as big of a deal.
I can see that, but like I don't know that strategy. Like when you're talking top people, you're talking like top 1%, right?
Mhm.
Like maybe 1 out of 100, maybe two, 3 out of 100. I could see that. We have a couple of those guys on our team, and I could just they could work from home all day and still outperform. But I don't man, when I work from home, it's like I'm distracted left and right. I can't
Yeah, you
I get
you
so
definitely
much more
have
done at
to
work.
like focus on being able to be productive at home. And I think so. Coinbase. Oh, I think the biggest question is: are you going to lose these candidates for these positions if you're remote versus not? And if they are really the best candidates and you can
Right.
only get them remote, then I think that's the maybe the decision that they figured out is what they would have to make to get those best candidates.
Yeah.
I think that's what it comes down to. And also, like so I was looking at a not for myself, but an offer from Coinbase, and they offer like I think it's like a grand or two in home office every like 6 months or a year, and then like $200 a month in like stuff for like coffee and stuff for your home office. So you do like, and their pay is top tier. So like it would help a lot to work from home if you had like a serious work from home office, because then you could really design it to limit your distractions and be productive. I think.
That's crazy. I mean, I guess if your strategy includes only the very best, you got to incentivize them to stay. And maybe that's what it takes. I just can't imagine having such a profitable product that you can just spit money at people. But that's crazy.
Yeah, and it makes sense to me. I think if your company is working on something cool enough, you can get those top tier talent, and your company is big enough, and that top percent is so much better than the other 95%, other 98% maybe. You know,
Yeah, I
that's the difference between the NBA and college players. So like
yeah,
you're talking like a bunch of big companies have all these like what they'd be like D1 college athletes. Like me, I'd probably be a D1 athlete right now. And then the next level is like the NBA, and only a small percentage of that percentage is making it there.
right.
And then the high school athletes are like the IT department.
Why are you throwing shade at IT? I didn't know that. That must
It,
be an inside joke. That's funny. Is that a programmer joke? Those that can't code IT.
yeah, I don't know if it's ever explicitly been said, but it's true. I mean, it was
Wow.
like when we went over the Dan Martell podcast. I'm like, he's not like technically a software guy. He's in the industry at this point. Um, yeah,
So one of the things I wanted to talk about was and it kind of ties into the remote. I'm curious what you
we're
think
gonna
about.
talk about what you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he was
All
talking
right,
about how
shoot.
like part of his luck, because he asked like what was lucky in your career, and he talked about being in Silicon Valley, you know, growing up, and I think that's very true. I think the location you're at is sometimes more important than the job you have. Like I have a better job here than I had in Palmdale as far as like what you'd want in a job. But my opportunities in Palmdale were limitless. And they just like it just you didn't even have to look for them. They just came and found you.
Yeah,
And I feel like it'd be the same way in Silicon Valley with all these software. Like if you were in Silicon Valley 30 years ago and you're not a millionaire today, you suck. It's kind of how I look at it. Uh, because there's so many. I mean, you could trip and fall into you know, a company that's now worth billions of dollars over there. Um, but if if we're moving to this globalized world where the best and the brightest go remote, then do you still see that location being such a key advantage in the future?
uh, I don't know if remote will ever be big enough because you have the other end of the stick where all these other companies are doing the opposite and they're going back to office. Um, I think this might bring up a good point of this benefiting Coinbase in a way is if their best talent's remote, they're not going to fall into these other opportunities, and they may retain uh, employees better.
Well,
They're kind of out of the loop, right, of the
maybe.
Silicon
I mean,
Valley
yeah, you're not
opportunity.
socializing around the water cooler about like the next startup that's in the building beside you. But
It seems,
you're remote.
yeah.
Like you
Go
can
ahead.
literally work for any company tomorrow. You don't have to move. You don't have to. All that like switching pain is just gone.
And
If you're,
their emphasis is on retention. Like right now, they're running an experiment of every quarter the whole company takes a week off
yeah,
to prevent burnout.
yeah, that's cool. And I like how it's all at the same time. Like I'm sure that crappy IT guys still working, to make sure that. but all the important people are taking off at the same time.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I doubt they keep doing that, but who knows? I know like I could see like half the company taking off every other quarter, so they like there's still people working that week, but it's just crazy to me to think that they could actually have their entire company out for a week.
Yeah. I mean, there is a thing about having like what he talked about, like if you take a week off but you're in a certain position, the um the pressure to stay in the loop is there. Like when mom comes down and visits me, she's on the phone still now and she feels like she still has to be plugged in. But I mean, she's
Yeah,
still getting a vacation, but there's a little bit less of one.
yeah, that's for sure. And well, yeah, I don't know. I haven't gotten into leadership, but I think that's kind of as a leader, part of your job is to create a robust team that can start to support each other once they're like when someone's missing.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's easier said than done. But that's like something to strive for, right?
Absolutely. It's often a trap a lot of first time leaders take a while to learn because they think that teaching other people to do what they do will allow them like they'll lose their value Like they're important because they're the only people that step up and do these hard things. But really, the best leaders, they can be gone for the next month and you can't tell because they set up systems that work without them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's definitely scary for a leader. They have to really trust that like the next upper level of management like sees that for what it is and doesn't see it as a weakness. Because I think it's very easy to fall in that trap of seeing that as a weakness. Like if my team can function without me, then what am I doing? But that's
What I
like
tell,
what a good team should be.
yeah, what I tell my best employees is if you want a promotion, teach someone to do what you do now. And once people see that you have a replacement and that um, they'll be quicker to pull you to that next opportunity. Because there is sometimes that as much as people don't want to admit it, it's like this person would be great for the job, but if we pull them from here, that will fall apart and that will be more detrimental than the benefit of having them there. And I don't think people realize how many opportunities they miss if they're a top performer that can't teach someone behind them to do what they do.
Yeah, that's yeah. I think it's very common. I think a lot of times too, people get so caught up in work they don't think about learning about like leadership. Like they get so caught up in how good they are at their development skills, they don't take time to learn about what's the next step, and be able to learn skills like, hey, you need to start um, offloading, knowledge transferring, teaching to be able to take that next step. And not only as on a personal level, because yeah, it is very personal. Like it is for your own benefit, but it's also for the team's benefit. Like you're creating more talent to facilitate the team in a compounding effect because then that person does it, and then that person, the person they taught does it.
Mm-hmm. You know, the other thing he was talking about when he's talking about getting lucky is he talked about having parents that were supportive and were like lifelong IBM or corporate people essentially. And to me, at least the takeaway was he thought he had a good, parachute should he fail. And I'm curious to hear what you think. Would you rather like so some people say don't have a plan B because if you have a plan B, plan A won't work. Like essentially, if you have a backup plan, when going gets tough, you'll take the backup plan. Or are you more of like I want a backup plan so I can be free to take risk and feel safe taking them? Which side do you land on?
I think it's solely dependent on where you're at in your life. When you have a family and people to support, you have to have a backup plan. And that's something you see with all these CEOs and ultra successful people is they're by themselves. They don't
Mm-hmm.
carry that liability of having people to support. So for me, I'm already past the point where I'm planning to have always have a plan B. And another thing that I think it's hard to truly say. There's a couple things here. It's hard to truly say that he doesn't have a plan B because how I look at my risk. So if when I took this last job I took, I have confidence that I'm always going to be able to land on my feet. So say this job didn't work, something happened, they made layoffs like to new hires in the first like 3 months. I have confidence that I will land on my feet, and that's kind of my plan B. Is like I think this industry is still lucrative enough that I could always find a job, even if it is like worst case I take a pay cut at some percentage, but it wouldn't be that bad. So that's kind of my plan B. I don't like have a specific plan B. I'm willing to take risks just because I have that confidence that I'll be able to find something. Second
But
part,
no, but
yeah, go
does that
ahead.
take an edge off?
Yeah, I don't. I think it would take because of that. If I had a startup idea, if I had something I wanted to leave a salary for, it would be very, very hard to leave that and not have a plan B. I guess my plan B would be getting a job after that, but
Yeah.
I think it would be if I could take the jump to do that startup, then I think I'd be more motivated. But I think it would take more for me to make that jump, and I could miss opportunity by not making that jump when it
Yeah.
was more risky. Also, at that point, you said he was willing to risk it all. This man already sold his tutoring company he made in college for $2 million at this point. He was plugged in with YC, which is like a movie. Like it is not realistic. He worked for like multiple YC companies, and then like was like talking to them about all the ideas he had, and they were his initial funding. So and also, if his parents took a lifetime at IBM, that means in that time they were probably really smart and really successful and had a lot of money.
Other door.
So I think that part is kind of looked over as well.
Go bring it in here. He's really smart, I swear. Yeah, I mean, it's like a lot of those things. It's like, yeah, I hear you. You took big risk in that job, but yeah, you were a millionaire that had a bunch of at the same time. But I'm
Yeah,
just like curious. Like to me, it's like there is some fire behind not having a good plan B. Like right now, my mortgage is nuts. Right? It would be I would be on a very short runway if I were to lose my salary with this mortgage, and it's just like a little bit of fire. It makes me work a little bit on weekends. It makes me like make sure I'm buttoned up and you know
okay. So that's interesting. So you're kind of calling all the liabilities, all the stuff you're responsible now. You're kind of saying you don't have a plan B because your job is your plan A right now.
yeah, a little bit
Like
like part of
signing
like
up for your mortgage would be the risk that
thank you,
you're
bud.
taking, right? And you don't really have a plan B if you lose your position.
Yeah,
Like you're betting it
like
all that you're going to be able to keep making money.
right. And I really so like going back to this Brian Armstrong. I want to be that guy that says the right thing, but a little bit of part of me, it's kind of like don't rock that boat. Like, is it real? Like, is the risk reward worth it? And it's because of those calculations. And I'm wondering, like, is the very best 100% outcome path the path I don't take because I'm a little scared that, you know, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
I
something I
think
think
it's
about a lot.
important to always ask yourself that, like to be able to reevaluate and honestly ask yourself, am I missing out opportunity because I'm scared of risk?
Right.
And then it just depends on your risk tolerance, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm in the boat kind of with you where I'm going to spend money to motivate me to make more. And I think genuinely, because there's so much money to be made out there, even just like with having a salary job, um, looking at other people that aren't nearly as motivated. And so when we go buy a new car, put it in the next gear, keep working hard.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I used to get so excited when my employees would buy a new car or buy a house because I knew that was like, especially like it was. This is kind of bad, but like when we had the times of overtime and people were working a ton, they'd be making a lot of
yeah,
money, right? So they'd make a
they
ton of money and they'd go buy that new car and their new house, but that required them to keep working overtime. And that's just perfect for me because when
it,
your best
it
player, go ahead.
it just creates once everyone's kind of on that level, like it's way harder to drop a level in wages and
Hmm.
stuff. But it creates a better life for everyone, right? It's like
Right.
kind of like a growing market, but in
Or a
terms of your
self-fulfilling
work.
prophecy.
Hmm. And it's
Have you ever been
crazy.
to
It just
Vegas?
nope.
Oh my gosh. When you leave Vegas, so I don't gamble. Um, but I went to Vegas with dad and you kind of see all the cool things money could buy. And man, when you leave there, you want to go make millions.
So that's exactly what it was every time we visited you guys in Los Angeles.
Really?
Like, yeah, so coming from Springfield, Illinois, it's a small town. You see the same things over and over. And I always came back motivated and like with bigger aspirations.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly what I experienced.
it's funny because they teach you not to be material, but like you need a little bit of it.
Yeah, I
It's a
mean,
powerful motivator.
I think I think people all the time, and it's because of how popular it is to say that something's bad. Just about everything in this world has a good and bad. It's about finding the balance, right? You can say envy and greed's bad, but if you don't have any envy and greed, you're not gonna have,
The push.
I don't, yeah, you're a successful life. You're probably, I don't know, your best case scenario, if you don't have any envy and greed, that means you're probably just helping people out all the time. But then what kind of life are you creating for your family?
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's just like being able to find that balance, but letting like a lot of things that people consider bad fuel you in the right way. Like I think about stress. Everyone says stress is a bad thing, but stress is what keeps kept you alive for the longest time, and
yep.
it's what keeps me dialed in at work a lot of times. And it's just having the right mindset, utilizing it the right way.
Yeah.
But people get taught those are bad things.
Stress, baby. Ooh.
Yeah, can't grow muscle without stress. It's a great example.
It is. I mean, a lot of what you're talking about is like, you evolved to have all these different things for a reason. You know, you're evolved to be stressed when you're hungry because it's a powerful motivator. Go get some food. He talked a lot about the being passionate about what you're doing, and his case was essentially, um, you if you're passionate about it, you'll persevere when it gets hard, which I think makes a lot of sense. Then we just got done listening to Scott Galloway. One of his things was, screw your passion. Go find something that will make you money that you can get a wife with, build a family with, provide for them with, and then the happiness will come from other things. Do you have a side?
Um, I think the first option is the cliche. He's only saying that because it worked out for him.
Huh.
Because what if your passion is making food? Do you really think it's a good passion to go work as a chef, try to start a restaurant, and start a family? I don't think so. I think you got to find something that you have played out the outcomes, and it's going to allow you to provide for your family.
Hmm.
And I think if you can, if you can, you should be able to find something that can provide for your family, create a life that you want, that will provide the means for the life you want, right? I think if you work your ass off at that, you have enough time to follow your passions. And then maybe once you create enough capital or enough a good enough network and you've worked your ass off, then you can follow those passions.
Yeah, I'm
I'm
glad.
not passionate about tax software, printer software, but no, I worked my ass off in it, and
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna really enjoy my job for the foreseeable future,
Yeah.
getting into management.
That's so like I'm glad you took that side. I always like what I think of when people this topic comes up is like I could totally see myself doing a bunch of different things, and I think I'd love all of them. I would love to be a cook. That'd be a great time. Um, I'd love any sports. I would love if I had any talent in it. I would love to sing. Um, so I'm curious if I'm an outlier in that way, or is everyone passionate about multiple things, and this whole find what you're passionate in is kind of a
I think I would say if you are going to follow that path of Brian Armstrong, you have to truly follow that path in terms of don't start a family young. If you want to follow a high risk passion and you want to be those top performers, you're going to have to sacrifice that family structure early on, that creating a family early on. Because I don't know if you become successful in those highly competitive, high risk um, fields and have a, a happy family life. I mean, everyone you see doing that, they typically don't have families.
yeah. It's definitely it's such an advantage because kids are so expensive, and not just the money wise, the time wise, the
Time wise, yeah.
emotionally wise, that you absolutely have advantage if you don't go that route.
And if you go that route, you're going to end up just like all the other successful people on their second or third wife.
maybe, maybe. Well, so like
Because
I
you got to put in years
yeah,
to become a Coinbase founder and CEO.
right.
You got
You
to
do. I mean,
travel.
he talked about working on the weekdays and at night and the weekends. Like that was a lot. When he was rattling off how much he was working, that was a ton.
Hmm.
So
And
I
he
mean,
was talking
you're not
about
wrong.
how his friends were like wanting to see him, and he didn't have time for his friends.
Right.
Like he already didn't have any social network, like these close relationships, and he couldn't even doesn't. You don't have time for those. You just don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Success costs time. That's for sure. It is, and it's lonely too. I tell all my new leaders that like one of the things that they don't tell you enough is it gets lonely because you're not supposed to be friends with the people that work for you. Not to mention all the time commitment. Yeah. I I I used to like internally a lot of the people at my level of success were those that didn't have kids. And I used to tell myself like, "Hey, I'm right here. I'm battling with you and I got kids." So, I'm winning.
Yeah, yeah, man. It is hard to compete with those people too,
It is. Cuz they
because
can just
if
work till
they,
7. They're not missing anything.
yeah, if they drop a gear and then start competing with you, and they're working till 7 every night, then it's like you better
Yep.
be efficient.
Yep. What other things you want to hit?
One thing on this topic, one thing that he mentioned, he said specifically in a quote, he said, "Not caring what others people think is a superpower."
Yep. I got that in droves. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, thanks, pops. It, I thought that was a pretty interesting insight. Out of all the things along his journey, what he picked up as a superpower, one thing he felt worth mentioning was that not caring what other people think. I thought that was just a pretty interesting insight, you know?
And it's kind of like everything. Like there's a good and a bad to it, and you can do it multiple ways. My way
And
is to
his,
not care what anybody thinks, but I've seen people do the other way where they care, they're helpful to everybody, they do more than their fair share, but people respect them for it. I think that's how mom climbs. I don't think she has the don't doesn't care bug.
yeah, I don't know. That's kind of more along the path of what I'm doing right now, I feel like, but I feel like it's more the position I'm in.
Well, and I would tell people what follow your nature. Like if you're a nice and kind person, don't be something else just because you think it'll give you an advantage. Just go optimize it. And if you're a crusty old do it by yourself kind of guy, then just do it that way. I would not tell you to go against your natural inclinations.
One of the things you mentioned on top of that was the importance of finding like the people you on the other side of the stick, the people you do care what they think. You said like it's very important to find a small group of people that have your best interest in for you. And I
Yeah.
think that's like super important and something very hard to find. I think
Very.
in our family, we get it a lot internally through our family, especially because we're all pretty motivated um, and like very ambitious. And so people I even do align with and um, care about, I feel like a lot of them aren't as ambitious or reasonably motivated to kind of bounce big ideas off. So like I'm very lucky to have siblings that are kind of in the same mind space.
Yeah. And as you go up the chain, it kind of naturally filters out those people too. Because you do want to surround yourself with other ambitious people. But I don't know. Like I really prize people that will tell it to me straight. And I try to return that favor. But it is hard. It is very hard to, especially when you know someone's going to take it the wrong way, to still tell them what they need to hear rather than what you know they think or want to hear. It's tough.
In in that scenario, are you hoping that they are able to sit on that and think through it and understand you at some point? Is that the goal behind that? Or like next time you come around, oh, that time maybe they are able to take that constructive criticism?
So I two thoughts on that one. One, I was taught, and it was one of the biggest things I learned from David. And I don't even think he explicitly said it. It's kind of something I picked up. Is like you, like as a leader, this is as a leader, you not telling someone something that will make them better because it's uncomfortable is a selfish act. Like you are choosing comfort over helping someone else out. And you're doing it under the guise of kindness or worrying about their feelings. It's selfish. If you do that, you are being selfish. And once you kind of take that frame of reference, I did started doing the same thing with my kids. Like,
I was just about to say that's like something that seems obvious with kids. Like, don't spoil them to treat them to love them. If you
right,
truly love them and you don't want to like spoil them, let them eat that dessert for breakfast. You know,
right,
you're in their best interest. But I never thought about that in like a professional uh, mind space.
yeah, yeah. It helps. It helps you hold people accountable because it's really hard to do as a leader. Um, it's it's a skill you don't learn much in the rest of your life, holding people accountable, because normally it's none of your business. But in the professional world, it quite literally is your job. The other example, I told one of my friends we were at a golf trip, and he was talking about his girlfriend and how she was acting, and I was like, she's cheating on you, and it wasn't, maybe I could have been nicer about it, but I was straight up like, I think she's cheating on you. I think you should call her on it. 2 years later, he's like, yeah, you guys are spot on, and it's like it didn't make me feel better by any
Yeah,
means,
you
but
don't want
like
to be right about that.
I'm very glad I said it. It's one of the things I'm proud of. Um, because I just like you hope someone would do that for you when you're blinded on a topic like that. It takes a lot. I think the best friends do that for each other. And sometimes it comes across as mean, but some of those people out there that seem mean actually care when they're being mean.
Yeah, that's tough. I don't know. It's always been really hard to. I'm sure in that situation, do you feel like he wanted your input or wanted your help? Because it's hard for me to give input if someone acts like they don't want it.
I don't know. He was really receptive to it. I'll give him that. I mean, he wasn't like immediately confrontational or mad like a lot of people would. He took it really well. It's just like I don't know, it's tough. It's like one of those things. It's like it takes practice. It takes just like gritting your teeth and getting through it. But
It's a coming of age thing.
yeah, and you don't always see immediate returns. Like often when you hold someone accountable, they're upset with you. This idiot, he's mean. He doesn't get it. He doesn't know how hard it is. Blah 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 blah. But in 2 months, you know, I'll tell you this. There's a really good Corey Carruth, Northrop Grumman, one of Northrop Grumman's best vice presidents. He was a savage, man. When I first got there, we butted heads because I want to do it my way, and he was doing it his way. Period. And you know, for I worked for him for probably 2 years, and man, when that guy was gone, I missed him because not only did he make me better, but he made everyone around me better. And when he did that,
Hmm.
when he held everyone accountable, my job got easier. And that was the first thing I missed when he left is everyone stopped, holding their own, and no one would call him on it. And I'm left holding a bag because someone doesn't want to step up and do their part. Man, he embodied accountability, and it made everyone better. But the point is, I hated him at first. And a lot of times when you do this accountability thing, when you do the truth thing, it's negative at first, and it feels like it's the wrong thing. But you just got to know that you're on track to a better future. It's tough.
Yeah, I mean that's what the I would say great leaders do.
Did you like the part about the dip? I can't remember the book he wrote referenced if it was actually called The Dip, but I thought it was really
Hmm.
interesting. I'd never heard that before. He said like the premise of the book was essentially if what you're doing or think about what you're doing, and if in 5 years if you weren't on top of the world, if you weren't making a ton of money, would you still want to do it? Did I get
Hmm.
that right? Did I remember that?
Yeah, I think that's the premise of the dip is when you're going through the dip, are you going to want to? Are you going to be able to work through it? Are you going to be the percentage that makes it out?
Right. When you're Michael Jordan in the early 90s and you keep losing in the Eastern Conference, are you going to keep going? I
Yeah.
thought that was really interesting, and I never thought about that like that. But I guess I got lucky in that what I was doing kind of scratched that itch without even thinking about it.
Hmm. And yeah, I think that's kind of on the topic of doing what you love, which is truly a luxury. I think you have to be very fortunate to do something you're like ultra passionate about. I think what I get more out of that is if that isn't your position, if you're not like ultra passionate about whatever you're working on, but like I love my job, but I'm not like ultra passionate about the product. That's just how it is. I think what I can take away from that is to gain perspective, to know when you're in a dip. It's like, okay, this is when I got to grip my teeth. This is the
Yeah, that's
things
true.
I have to push through.
Yeah.
And once I get on the other side of that, it's going to be lucrative, my rewards.
Hmm.
So I think that's the other, if you aren't in those luxury positions, like that's how I would look at it. And I think that's how you really need to.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Understand you're in the dog days.
Hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah. Perspective is very powerful um, with being able to find motivation, at
So
least for
like
myself.
so you're not necessarily working on a product that motivates you. What keeps you going? Let me ask you this. What would motivate you more? Like what are you passionate about?
Um, I think I would love to work on some type of robotics or like in the car industry. Any performance industry like cars or dirt bikes, automobiles, robotics, drones, something like that. I would be very passionate about the products. Right now, though, I do love just the I love problem solving, and I get a lot of that, and I see a lot of opportunity and growth into management where I'm at. So that gets me very excited. But I would love to work on something that is like putting together. It has to be project based. I love projects. Production support is whack, and you can catch me never doing that.
So, have you thought about switching to that? What's stopping you?
Um, I've thought about it. I've tried. Um, I haven't really got much out when I've been looking. I
A
think,
lot of times, you got to take the working on a cool thing discount too.
yeah,
Like in aerospace, I remember the first job I had was cool. We were building parts for the F-18, but there's people in petroleum making 25% more than me. There was someone at Kraft making mac and cheese making the same amount. It's like they know you want to work something cool, so they can kind of like you're going to take this salary,
mhm,
did a little bit of that. But man, it's like when those two worlds do align and you're making a lot of money, you have the opportunity and you're working on something that motivates you. Whoo! I miss that sometimes. Like I man, it was hard in Palmdale. I mean, it was early in the morning and you worked late at night and it was 5, 6 days a week consistently. We got like Christmas Day off. That's it. I miss it sometimes. I'll be honest. Like this job is cush, but that last job had a certain appeal to it because of that motivation. There's
yeah. I
there's
think
something
right.
to it.
Another thing I think about too is I'm like primed. I think I'm about a year out to getting into management. I would like to think that having that on my resume would help me a lot since I've already put in the year. I put in a year of work to get me to this position to get into management.
Yeah.
And if I would move to another development position, then I'd have to put that year, 2 years in, and hopefully get into that next step, next phase. Um, and the work I put in this year kind of go to waste.
Yeah. I mean, getting that leadership experience, like breaking through that door, is the toughest part sometimes. I think
Yeah,
you're,
and I truly do like my job. Like I don't dread going to work. I think if it was a position where I did dread going to work, I'd be a lot more motivated to move.
Mhm.
So one other thing, I enjoyed listening to the podcast. I enjoyed when he was talking about his early days of Coinbase and finding product market fit. So he had kind of came onto the scene. Coinbase was a wallet for cryptocurrencies, and he was showing it to customers, and they couldn't get anyone to use it. And so they would ask them, like, why are you not using it? And it was a simple, simple solution. We don't have any. There's no easy way to buy it. I think like that part of the story is so crazy to me. It was like such a simple problem that they solved, and that's why they're so good. They made it easy, quick, and simple to buy crypto.
Yeah.
Like that's all it took.
A funny story. So, dad was pumping it early. And we used to, I was a really nerdy kid in college. So we used to talk about this stuff before it was the thing. We talked about crypto and Bitcoin. So I was aware of it. I liked the idea of it. and I went to go get Coinbase to try to buy some, and you had to get your ID verified, and no matter how many times I tried, it wouldn't work.
Mm.
I uninstalled the software, I reinstalled it, and it's like today I'm not a Coinbase user. I use PayPal instead, even though I would much rather have it in Coinbase because of that one time it just wasn't easy. I thought that was interesting when I was listening to it.
Yeah, I think stuff like that is, whether you recognize it or not, it's a stressful process. Like you should be mildly unnerved if you're gonna put a worth sum amount into an investment that's risky.
Yep.
Like and for that not to be a fluid process is going to turn away people.
Yep.
Um, but
Absolutely.
I thought I love the fact that the big problem they solved was so simple. Maybe
Yep.
maybe it didn't solve it for everyone, but in general. So PayPal, you don't actually. That's kind of like a Robin Hood when you buy crypto, right? Like
Right. I just own
you're
the
buying.
value of it.
They're buying it on your behalf.
Right. But
Gotcha.
if the asset inflates, I get that value.
Hmm.
Yeah. I don't like that PayPal shut down some people's accounts because of some woke stuff. I didn't like that at all. Like that's one of the reasons you go decentralized so that people can't control the money. But it
Hmm.
was just easy and
Yeah.
trustworthy, so I went that way. I like the part where he talked about if you're having trouble finding a co-founder, just keep making progress and they'll find you. And then Stephen Bartlett was like, that kind of works in your personal life too. Just keep working on yourself. I like that a lot. I think I'll use that if people ever ask me for advice. It's like, just keep making yourself better. And the other thing I
Yeah.
thought of when is like, when you're early in your career, go find someone that kind of has it figured out, has something exciting, and just go do that with them. Build yourself up, and then eventually, as you build yourself up, you'll find people starting attaching themselves to you the same way you attach yourself to someone else in front of you. And it's kind of a, I would not be, I would tell people, don't be ashamed. Go find someone you respect that's on that upswing and just go say, I'm on your team. I'm going to make you look good. I'm going to help you. And I'm going to make myself better on that swing up. And then you'll find yourself in that position before you know it.
Yeah. I think even on top of that fact is just if just speaking things into existence. Like I'm on your team. I'm gonna like if you say that, if you vocalize that stuff, like it's gonna help it come true. Like I think there's so many people that just don't take the step to speak these things into existence and
Yeah.
be actually ambitious.
Yeah. You like that woo woo Oprah shit, Conley?
I miss that part.
That she had like a, I don't, it was kind of before my time. I was kind of, I don't know, maybe a teenager when it was happening, but she had like this book about like self beliefing things into existence. And it almost got like semi religious for a little bit because Oprah was so big. But I don't know. It
Hmm.
was fun.
Well, I guess I'm an Oprah fan.
I am great. I am powerful.
Some people need that, man. I, I hate to say it. I mean,
I make
I
fun
hate
of
to
it,
be
but
on any woo-woo train, but there's dude, there's so many people that have nobody telling them they can do like stuff. They can do hard things. They can accomplish things.
yeah, and your mind is a powerful place. You can trick it. You can trick
Hmm.
yourself by talking that way. You can. Um, so you're not wrong. It's just an easy thing to make fun of. So I made fun
You're all good. You should be making fun of my hair, man.
of it. Do you have anything else? I have one more.
That is all I got.
So that last question, and I liked what he did. He's like, um,
Oh, I was gonna ask you that too. I forgot to write it down. Go for it.
he, he was he said at the end of every episode we ask someone to ask a question for the next person, not knowing who it is. And the question that was for him was, what are you passionate about that most people disagree with? Something like that, which is a great question. And maybe we could do that question too. But he said regulation is well intended, but ultimately harmful. I'm not quoting him here. It's kind of the roughly what he
Paraphrasing.
said. Yeah, paraphrasing. Thank you. And uh, I could not love that more. And I like, if you want to sum up my political views, he just said it. But it's the first time I really thought of, like, at work I hate bureaucracy too, and I think at work the quality team's going to hear me say, like, this is what I'm going to do differently. They're going to say, I think you're well intentioned in this step. I think you mean well, but ultimately it harms us. Like, we have this stupid process where it's so burdensome to update your processes that everyone keeps them super vague and no one uses them. And it's because they're so strict about how they change them that it turns on itself and it makes it unuseful. And it's like so many things in life are that way. And the tricky part is that bureaucracy always grows. That regulation always grows. It's one of the things I like most about Musk, where he's like, if you're not cutting back on
Yeah.
regulation, it's growing because you add more every year. And what is the process to remove it? I think that's a lot. I love that. I'll stop there, but I love that.
Yeah. No, that's spot on.
Do you have something that you're passionate about that most people disagree with?
Yeah, I'll go with what we were talking about earlier is kind of I really recently like the idea, we'll see how it plays out, of creating these liabilities to force yourself to grow. Buying that new
Oh,
car,
hmm.
buying the house,
Don't tell
spending
Dave
money on your
Ramsey.
health, spending money on your health.
Yeah.
Like it's like it's almost buying back your time. It's like the step before like actually buying back your time, but doing these things that increase your health, increase your productivity, increase your happiness, I think have huge returns that you can't really see initially. And I'm finding myself wanting to do these things more because I see them benefiting me down the line.
Hmm.
Like I've like this past month, for a month straight, I'm really mad. Uh, we didn't go. Me and my wife didn't go on a honeymoon right after the wedding, and I'm like trying to think. I really want us to go on a vacation a year, a true vacation a year, and I can't really get myself to do it because I'm like I I want to do it because I think that is going to be beneficial down the line for our marriage, our happiness, and just be a great experience. And you never know what you can like learn from it. But and then I go back to my financial plan, and I'm like, it doesn't fit my financial plan. So
Do you have an actual
I,
financial plan? Or is it just kind of an idea?
um, it's not like on an Excel. Well, at one point it was on an Excel sheet. But there's basically my
Nerd.
financial structure is there's a number that we're saving each month,
Oh.
and that's it. The rest of the money we have to spend, and if we run out of money that month, let's consider what we did the prior month, or if let's consider what we did and maybe spend money more wisely. But it's really easier said than done right now because we're on a dual income, so it's like it's not that big of a challenge.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Did you have one, or are you just gonna stick with building on Armstrongs?
I have one.
You don't want to say it. And that's like so. I'm so glad you brought this up because I wanted to ask this question, but then I was like, I was like, I don't know. It's kind of a really, it's not a pretty question to ask.
It's like one of those, is it worth the risk? I'll say it. I I more and more, and it's kind of evolving, but I think this is going to be very unpopular. I think what they tell you about getting sick, getting weird diseases and rare cancers is that like it's just random, you can't help it, is wrong. I think it's our environment. I think it's what we eat, and it's if God forbid if that happened to one of my kids, I can't imagine like if you do believe it is not random, like that would be soul crushing. Like that you had a part of that. So I get why people say it, why it makes people feel good, but I think deep down it's not true.
Let me give you a hot take on that. I don't think that's going to be a hot take in the next year or two.
Really? Oh, you think it's changing?
Hopefully, I hope so. I have a foolish hope and foolish faith in RFK.
Mm.
I really hope he can make a small change. Just let people realize like I don't know how it's gonna happen, but through some magical way, he can help inform people that their health's in their own hands. And it seems like it's coming more and more popular, and so I hope it keeps going that way. Um, but man, people do not give their body the right nutrition. They do not treat their bodies right, and they're lied to by saying that that stuff doesn't matter. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Go back to when I was eating lunch and 10 doctors around me were all drinking Monster Energies.
Yep.
It's crazy. It's like blatant right in front of your face. I think breakfasts are a great example. You go to a breakfast place, go to Bob Evans or wherever you want to go. I bet you'll see a lot of chocolate chip syrup pancakes, uh, and then people drinking like the Minute Maid orange juice. I hate to break to you, that's not orange juice. That's flavored orange
Allegedly,
drink
so we don't
that
get
is
sued.
like 50 grams of sugar, and that's just in your drink for your breakfast.
Yep.
How do you think that's going to affect your day? It's crazy. And I was on the plane. Get this, I was on the plane. I'm looking around. You know how they do drink service? It's usually just the little cup they fill up. They gave everyone the little cup and their full soda pop. So everyone, I look around on this plane of 100 people, and probably 98% of the seats had a full soda pop at
Don't say sody pop. Stop it.
it.
Stop it.
I have to because it, it makes it more of a joke in my head because it's so serious to me that everyone is putting that into their body. Everyone's falling under the trap
Yeah.
and drinking that. It's like as just a snack.
Yep.
Why? Because it makes their $400 airplane ticket feel more worth it. Really, you're gonna let them trick you into thinking you're getting a good deal because they're giving you a soda.
It's like so the people that have fallen for it, that have, let's say I'm right. Let's say it is in your control, and they have, you know, given their kids soda pop their whole life.
There it is. See, it helps. It helps numb the pain of just describing the situation.
But imagine you're a parent and you believe it doesn't really matter. You know, if if my kid gets diabetes when he's 16, it's just random and it was fate, and it's like it, I can't picture what evidence it would require to dissuade that parent, because they would have to then come to the conclusion that it was their fault. Their kid got diabetes, and like you got to have such overwhelming evidence at that point. And I don't
Hmm.
know how we got to this point where everyone believes getting sick is just random.
Well, I
Like,
think a
how did
big
that
part of
happen?
it. I think a big part of it is it's such a social norm to not accept an average person knowing any health information. It's like, oh, I have a runny nose. You should go to your doctor. No, you shouldn't. Just like your doctor isn't. That's not what they're there for. They're not there. It just.
See,
I
now you're
think
gonna get in trouble.
the social norms of it of health, the social norms of health have been so swayed against it's too complicated for someone to understand when it's really not.
Yep.
The
That
the
seems
the
like a
one
good.
health the one health thing that I've been stuck on. I don't know which one it was. I think it was the Brigham Bueller one, but they were talking about fructose, corn syrup, and fructose. The reason, the way they found it, it was like the I don't know, is it a chemical or whatever that's in berries that makes bears able to eat a bunch of food to hibernate because it makes them more hungry and it suppresses their or it increases their appetite, and that's what's put into all these drinks.
I don't know what to say. It's like it's so I don't know how we got here. It's sad to like ask that question. It's like, did we get here out of ignorance? Did we get here out of maliciousness? Like, how did we get here?
Yeah. So I'm gonna have foolish hope in RFK, the internet, to bring people out of this, which does seem like horrible things to rely on, politicians and the internet. But I'm just gonna hope. I'm just gonna, yeah. You, all you can do is hope and inform. I think about like that topic. That's so much you can really do
Mhm.
about it. Great episode. I really enjoyed that one, and we even got on health. So I think it was a great episode on our part too. No AI. Oh gosh. Yep. All right. Good stuff. See you around.